All right, it's a pleasure to see a bunch of future doctors. Anyone wants to become a dentist? No one wants to be a dentist. One dentist, all right, that's good. What about a veterinarian? Who will take care of the animals? No one wants to be a veterinarian. What about a psychologist? All right, we've got a few psychologists. Psychiatrist? Okay. And what about cancer specialist? Okay. All right, well, it's the first time I'm coming to JNV Bangalore Rural. It's wonderful. I think you guys are the first batch over here, which is wonderful. We'll see what you have in your mind. If you can give us your name and where you're from when you ask your question, that'll be great. First question.
Namaste sir, I am Mrinali from JNV Bangalore, Odisha. It's a very great pleasure to have the founder of Dakshana organization here with us today. So I would like to know the purpose behind this visit.
Have a seat. Thank you. The purpose behind the visit is very simple. COVID had messed up a bunch of my plans for a few years, but I've always wanted that all the scholars we have in Dakshana, I should be able to meet them at least once while they are students with us. So I was doing that basically. I would go to the campuses either every year or every other year. And then with COVID, I couldn't do that. So like some places, I think I have not been for more than 4 years. So I didn't really have any particular objective other than to meet you all, say hello, and have some time to interact with you and then take it from there. So that's the reason for the visit. And next question.
Good morning. I am Mayuri Mujalde from JNV Khargon, Madhya Pradesh. And my question to you is, it is well known that foreigners also donate to Dakshana for Indian student studies. Are they really interested in doing so? Isn't it difficult for you?
Okay, that's a good question. Please have a seat. Yeah, Dakshana was founded in the United States. So we have a US foundation called the Dakshana Foundation in the US. And then we have an Indian trust, Dakshana India Education Trust in India. A few years back, we opened up to people outside my family to give money to Dakshana. And they have been very generous. But I would say that a good amount of the money, even if it is coming from outside India, good amount is Indian origin, people of an Indian origin. Like for example, we have Prem Watsa, who is in Canada. He went to IIT Madras, and Prem gives us $1 million a year, about 8 crores a year. And when he had started to give the money to Dakshana, he said that he would give $1 million a year for 5 years. That's what he had committed. So when the 5 years got over, I did not tell him the 5 years are over. And the money has continued to keep coming every year. I think he forgot about the 5 years. So I wasn't going to remind him. It's been probably like 8 or 9 years now that he's been doing that. But in the case of, if you look at someone like Prem Watsa, basically he went to IIT Madras and clearly saw the benefits of what an IIT education did for him. And he has done a lot of things to give back to society. We have another large donor in India, Mr. R.K. Damani. Some of you may have heard of DMart. So he's the founder of DMart. And DMart themselves gives us money, and the Damani family also gives us money. So in that case, it's coming from India. But we have a few donors who are, more than a few donors who are actually not Indian. And they actually love the cause. They love what we are doing. And recently, I had an email exchange recently with Warren Buffett. Some of you may have heard of Warren Buffett. And Mr. Buffett was looking at our annual report, and he saw that there was a large number of donors in the annual report. And he mentioned to me that these people who are supporting Dakshana, they are supporting people who they will probably never meet. So he said, in his exact words, he was saying that they are planting trees whose shade other people will sit under and enjoy, but they will not enjoy the shade, right? Because they've given to somebody else. So he asked me, he said, maybe you should talk to the Dakshana students about them supporting Dakshana or another cause when they become successful. And I told him that actually, when we first started Dakshana, when we started in 2007, at that time, we used to tell the students that they should, once they start earning and doing well, that they should consider giving 10% of their income to help society, not to Dakshana, but to whatever cause they want to give to. And I realized after a few years that, maybe after a couple of years, that was the wrong time to talk to the students about that. So most of the scholars are so poor that they really cannot think about these things right now, because they have so many problems with the family and finance and all these things going on in their head. We don't want to add more things to that. So we stopped doing that. I think we said it in 2007, and by 2008 or 2009, we stopped talking about it. So you'll notice now that actually in your 2 years at Dakshana, nobody's really going to come and talk to you about, hey, you should do something for society or something, because we think it's the wrong time. Now, what I decided we would do is that when some of you are in your 40s, like maybe 20 years from now, there will be some of you who will be very successful, wealthy, and so on. And we will know who you are. So at that point, we will tap you on the shoulder and say, hello, do you remember? And that's like the Harvard University model. So Harvard provides a lot of resources and subsidy to the students who go there. The students are not even aware that they are getting these subsidies. But Harvard goes to the richest of the alums when they're in their 40s and taps them and says, hey, maybe you want to give something to the school. And of course, the alumni is very generous, and it has worked out well for Harvard. In the case of Dakshana, I don't know what our situation will be when 20 years from now or 25 years from now. I don't know what the situation will be. We may be doing extremely well, and we may not have a way to use more money. That'll be a good problem. Or we may have some endeavors which may require some of you to help. I've always felt from the beginning that Dakshana eventually will be run by the alums. It will be managed by the alums. It will be funded by the alums. You will be taught by the alums, and the alums will do everything. And we've already started seeing that happening. We have people like Ravi over here, who's an alum of Dakshana. And we have many faculty members who are alums of Dakshana as well. So eventually, I think that people like me will disappear from the scene, and it will be all of you who will really run and manage everything, which will be great. Next question.
Hello, sir. Good morning. I am Anjali Kumari from JNV Lohardaga, Jharkhand. And my question to you is, how we come to know our destiny as the deepest desire? Is it to dive in the path where thousands of people are crossing over at this same, or to dive in the new one, making another path for those people? Thank you.
There's a quote in the Upanishads, there's a particular paragraph in the Upanishads. And since my Sanskrit is not good, I will say it in English. As is your wish, so is your will. As is your will, so is your deed. as is your deed, so is your destiny. And then they bring it all together by saying, your deepest desire is your destiny. So what she's asking is, how do we know what our deepest desire is? It will become obvious. It may not be obvious right now. So one of the things that happens with all of you is you have been put on a very straight and narrow path, right? You are going through NEET coaching, and it is demanding and it requires you to do many things and so on. So there is not a lot of room for creativity for a lot of other things. And there's also probably not a lot of room for exploring what your desires are or what your deepest desires are. We are hoping that many of you have a true love for medicine. We are hoping. But it may end up being that you may discover that your deepest interests lie elsewhere. I would say that right now you don't have too much of an opportunity to explore a wide range of things, but I would say that once you go to med school and beyond, you should start exploring different things. For example, we have had students at Dakshana who used to sit in the back of the class and write Urdu poetry. For 2 years, the guy wrote Urdu poetry. He's supposed to do JEE prep, but he actually was so interested in Urdu poetry that he spent a lot of time first learning Urdu. And so it was very clear to me that this guy was very deeply interested in Urdu poetry. And of course, when the JEE results came out, he did not make it to IIT because 2 साल Urdu poetry कर रहे थे. And he had come to our award ceremony. We invited everyone to come to our award ceremony. And so I asked him, I said, look, how long would it take you to write a poem for this occasion? He said, oh, 5 minutes, sir. So I said, can you write a poem for me to say about our ceremony and all that? He said, I'll give it to you right now. And immediately he wrote a very nice poem and gave it to me, which I was able to say to people and all of that. So clearly the guy was very talented. But then he was feeling very sad. All his friends were going to IIT and he was not going to IIT. So he comes to me and says, can Dakshana support me for one more attempt? I want to try, this time I want to study for IIT. So I told him it's the wrong thing for you. You really don't have an interest. This would be like your parents would love for you to go to IIT, but probably not the right thing for you. So I encouraged him to try to get admission in a place which will allow him to flourish as a poet. And that's a very difficult thing to do because it's very hard to make a living as a poet, right? But to me, it appeared that engineering was probably not the right answer for him. So this notion of deepest desire, I think what you have to do as you go through life is you have to sample many things. So you may try different sports and you may find you like some sports better than others. You may try different games. You may like certain games better than others. You may read different books, things you may like certain books better than others. And even in terms of how you spend your days, whether you want to have private practice or work in a hospital or be specialized, all these different things have different experiences. And I think it's an exercise where you have to see which glove fits the best. So it's hard to tell what your deepest desire is unless you sample many things. So you have to try to always be willing to sample different things. I have tried to do that in my life. And what happens is that sometimes you try something and you really love it a lot. So, like, for example, when I was, I think, 23 years old, accidentally I was introduced to the game of bridge. It's a card game. And I really love the game. And even now, I probably spend at least 10 hours a week playing bridge. And it gives me a lot of pleasure. So clearly, I've been playing bridge for like almost 40 years, 35 years, and I've really enjoyed it, right? And that was by accident because some people started playing the game, I played with them, I really liked it. I wouldn't have known that I'm going to like this game. Similarly, I became an investor accidentally. I read a book, I got interested with that book, kept reading more books, and I thought that worked well. And so I think we have to sample many things. Even Dakshana, for example, I never wanted to start my own foundation. It's too much work. I wanted to just write a check to somebody. They run it and they do everything. So I had run into Super 30, Anand Kumar. I ran into him in 2006. And I tried to convince him to scale up Super 30. I told him, let's make Super 30 Super 300 and I'll fund you, right? And he said, I have no interest in even going to 31. I want to stick to 30. And I don't want to scale, I just want to run it, and I don't want to take any outside support. So then I said, okay, do you mind if we copy your model? He said, no, this is a good thing, you should copy the model. So Dakshana got created because I didn't have a choice. I really wanted to just write a check. But what ended up happening is that it actually became a very fun exercise. And one of the things about Dakshana that I enjoy the most, which I didn't know when we started, is every year I visit some scholar homes in different states. One year I visited scholar homes in Kerala. Another year I visited scholar homes in Bengal. And before the pandemic in 2019, Colonel and I went to Ladakh and we visited a bunch of scholar homes in Ladakh, which was a lot of fun. And what I found is that the scholar home visits were even more enjoyable than visits like this because it's more one-on-one. I get to see the family and actually get to see parts of India I never saw. So to me, every year, the 1 week I spend visiting the scholar homes is like playing bridge. It's a lot of fun. So I wouldn't have known ahead of time that I'm going to enjoy scholar home visits, I'm going to enjoy bridge. I think what you have to do in life is you have to sample many things. And you have to be a critical judge. If you don't really love something, let it go. Go sample something else. And if you keep sampling different things, then you'll find things that, and whatever you really love, you should increase the time of that in your life. And whatever you don't like, you should decrease the time. And you'll end up in a good place. Next question.
Hello, sir. Good morning. I'm Nika from JNV Gumto, Papumpare, Arunachal Pradesh. And my question to you is, sir, you provide us JE and NEET coaching, but when we end up being Dakshana co-worker, how do you feel?
Okay, that's a great question. I think it's a wonderful result. We want you to pursue what you are most excited about. And some of you will be very excited to be in Dakshana. And if that's the case, then that's wonderful. Like I told you, I think that in the end, it's like Abraham Lincoln said, of the people, for the people, by the people. And so Dakshana should be for the alums, by the alums, with the alums, funded by the alums. Everything with the alums is great. But we also don't want to push you. So it has to come from you inside. So if it's something that you're truly interested in, then that's wonderful to come over. That'll be great. Next question.
Hello, sir. I am Anambu from JNV Sepa, Arunachal Pradesh. And my question to you is, sir, naturally, when a person tends to start something new and big, the fear of being a failure is always there. So, sir, know that it may be in your case also. So, sir, I would like to know then how did you overcome that fear, sir?
Okay. Yeah, there's a message in the Gita where Lord Krishna is talking to Arjun, and he said that it is our duty to do what we are put on earth to do. So, all we are supposed to do is do our duty. We don't really have a right to look for a reward, right? So, it is basically being a karma yogi, which is you focus on your duty, don't worry about the outcome. And generally speaking, what you will find in life, and I've noticed this multiple times, is failure is a blessing. Usually what happens is that when we are successful, we don't really learn anything. And we don't really have growth that takes place. What happens is that when we fail, we are forced to look at why the failure happened. And how could we have prevented the failure, and what can we learn from it? All these things, which you don't do when you're successful. And so in many ways, actually, failure is a blessing. There's a Roman philosopher. He was one of the last Roman kings, Marcus Aurelius. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie The Gladiator. Did you see the movie The Gladiator? No. Maybe when you're in med school, you can see the movie. Anyway, Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor, and he had a very difficult life. His whole life was spent on the battlefield. And he had a lot of injuries, he had a lot of sicknesses, and he had a very tough time throughout life. And he came up with a philosophy which is known as the Stoic philosophy, Stoic. Later, when you're done with med school, you can study the Stoic philosophy. And the Stoic philosophy, if I just sum it down very simply, is to encounter misfortune and overcome it is good fortune. So we should be grateful every time we stumble, and we should be grateful every time we fail, because the failures are going to teach us. And I can point to so many times in my life where very clearly I failed. And from that, I could not see it at that time, but from that failure came a lot of learning and growth. So like, for example, in 1999, there was this huge frenzy for creating .com companies. So the internet just started, a lot of people were creating a lot of different .com companies, pets.com, chemical.com, whatever. And people thought everything about the world will change with the internet. And I also thought the internet is very big and everything will change. So I formed a company which was going to do all this digital stuff. And I personally put in about $2 million into that company. And there were outside investors that put in about $2.2 million. So total of $4.2 million. It all went to zero. The company failed. So not just my company, but thousands of other companies failed at that time. And I felt terrible. Like I said, it's okay, I lost my money, it's okay, but I did not want to lose other people's money. But these other people actually, they were professional investors. They told me, don't worry about it, it's okay. They just brushed it off. But to me, it was a big setback. It was a large amount of money that was gone. And what happened after that is that when I started Pabrai funds after that, which was middle of 99, because I had been through this failure So the real mountain of failures was actually about 9 months ahead. So my companies had failed before that, but there was an avalanche of failures coming from March 2000 onwards. And I could see that probably 3 to 4 months before anyone else could see it. And the reason I could see that is because I had been through all that already. I already been through that failure, and I saw. So the rest of the world had not failed yet, so they couldn't see what I could see. And funds made a lot of money in that period when almost everybody got wiped out. And so when I look back, basically what happened is that we lost $4.2 million, but we probably made more than 50 million because of the lessons I learned that could be applied. And I could not tell at the time the failure occurred that in the future this is going to help me. I could not tell that. But what I've noticed is that then more recently, I think in 2015, I bought an insurance company. It was a pretty large amount of money, and I bought this insurance company. And I realized about less than 2-3 months after I bought it that I made a mistake. That it was not the right thing to do. So I tried to reverse the situation. So I tried to sell the company so that I could just get rid of it and be done with it. And I was able to do that. Basically, I was able to sell the company for a little bit more than I bought it for. So there was no loss. We did okay. But this time I knew that the lessons that will come out of that will help me in the future. And it does, because I saw a bunch of things which were not visible to me before. So many times when I make investments, they don't work. And when those investments don't work, that's really good, because they usually teach me some things. And so I think failure and success are two sides of the same coin. So if we succeed at something, there's no problem, life is good. If we fail at something, there's also no problem, because the payback will come later. I think like Steve Jobs was saying that we can only connect the dots looking back. We can't connect it looking forward. So some of these things only connect when you have some time that goes by. So generally speaking, I think that I'm really not afraid of failure. I think that if you try different things, for sure some things will not work, or many things will not work. But you will learn from that. Even when Thomas Edison, he invented the light bulb, and someone asked him, how did you invent the light bulb? He said, I invented the light bulb only by figuring out 3,000 other ways in which a light bulb doesn't work. So basically, Thomas Edison was very strong perseverance in the lab. He would try something, it wouldn't work. He would try something else, it wouldn't work. But he had faith that in the end he'll make it work, right? So he just kept on tinkering over and over. Each time something failed, he learned something from it. And so I think we should never really look down on failure. Failure is a blessing, and failure can really help us. So, next question.
Good morning. I am Ankita from JNV North Tripura, and my question to you is, starting such an organization, was that your idea or you were inspired by someone else?
Okay, that's a good question. Dakshana was started because I did not have a choice. I really was in a situation where, so some of you will do very well in life financially, and you will do so well that you will have more money than you can spend. which is a good problem. So if you end up with more money than you can spend, then there's only two things you can do. Like my dad used to tell me, when anyone leaves planet Earth, they cannot even take a pin with them. Okay, so when we leave, when we come to this planet, we come with nothing. When we leave with nothing. So whatever is here stays here. So when we die, or when I die, there are only two possibilities of what can happen to the extra wealth, right? One is I can give it to my gene pool. I can give it to my kids, my grandkids, my family, and so on. The second is I can in some way recycle it back to society, right? So those are the only choices. And you can do some combination of the two if you want, right? But these are the only two choices really. The problem with giving it to your gene pool or giving it to your kids is that large inheritances will do more harm than good. So basically, it's become like an IV drip. If you give someone a very large amount of money, they don't have much incentive to work hard. They have no incentive to find a job. It can become a wasted life, right? And we see a lot of examples of that. Buffett has a quote. He says that if you are Jesse Owens' son, so Jesse Owens was a very famous sprinter in the 1940s in the Olympics. He won gold medals. So Buffett says, look, if you're Jesse Owens' son and you are allowed to start 100-meter dashes at the 40-meter line, you will not become a great sprinter. If everyone else starts at 0 and you start at 40, you're not going to become the best sprinter, even if you win that race. So he said it's okay to start at the 10-meter line, but not the 40-meter line. So if you want to give your kids and grandkids little push in life, that is okay. I don't think that has any problem. But if you drown them in money, probably will do more harm than good. So I did not want to do more harm than good. So I said, okay, I talked to my kids, and my kids themselves told me, we have no interest in this money, please. Find something else to do with it. And my older daughter, her name is Monsoon, she has a tattoo on her back with the Dakshana logo. You have succeeded as a parent when your kid tattoos your company's logo on their back, okay? So she said, look, I don't want anything from you. What I do want is I want to be involved in Dakshana now and even after you are gone. So I said, that's fine. I need help. So she's very excited about being involved with Dakshana, which is fine, but doesn't want the money, right? Neither of the kids wants the money, which is good because I'm not planning to give them money anyway. So we are all in sync. And I think they'll both have really good journeys because they'll be able to create their own path and what they want to do and all of that, so it'll work out fine. And so the reason Dakshana was started was because I did not have a choice. So I knew I have to give the money away. I tried to give it to Anand, write a check. He refused. And then here we are, trying to do it another way. Any other questions? Yeah.
Hello, sir. Good morning. Myself, Neha from JNV Gopalganj, Bihar. My question to you is, sir, is it mandatory to be honest always to your parents about your studies? Thank you, sir.
This is a very difficult question. Maybe you should have Gokul answer that. What do you say, Gokul? Should we always be honest with our parents? Pardon? I think so. You think so? Sometimes it's not easy. Were you always honest with your parents? I think so. I think that here's the way I would put this. Okay, so first of all, there is a lot of benefits you will get in life by being truthful. Not with your parents, I'll get to the parents in a second, but with everybody in life. Because generally speaking, if you are truthful, people will know eventually that you can be trusted. And trust is a very important thing to have in life. And trust can take a lifetime to build, and it can go away in 5 minutes. So one small negative behavior can erode trust, and it can take a very long time to build trust. So I think what happens with your parents is I can think of some instances when I probably lied to my parents. And I probably lied to them because it was either awkward or too difficult to say the truth, right? Because you're in teen years or whatever else. But one thing I found a little strange in my life is my impression of my father was that he was always a very strict person. Like we had to be behaved and whatever else. And he didn't have too much patience for stupid behavior or whatever else. So I was always a little bit scared of my father because I just thought this is an intimidating person. But something happened and I still don't know. Now my father's passed away, so I never got a really chance to have a conversation with him about this. But when I turned 16 and my brother turned 17, he sat us both down. And he said, look, you know where I keep my wallet, my purse, and purse always has plenty of money in it. So anytime you need any money for any reason, you can go to the purse and just take the money. You never need to tell me how much money you have taken, and you never need to tell me what you did with it or plan to do with it. And I am never going to ask you. So I found this whole exchange really strange. Okay, I said, okay, this guy is a really strict guy. And at that time, when I was 16, I had just started dating this girl, which my parents didn't know about. And I said, this is awesome. Now, when we have to go on a date, I don't need to talk to someone. Just go to the wallet, take the money, go to a movie, whatever else, no problem. And so I did that a few times, and nobody asked me anything. My father never asked me anything, and I said, this actually is true. It's very strange. And what I noticed also about my father after that point, after that age of 16, is when he was interacting with us, he was not interacting as a father with a son. He was interacting like we were friends, which I found really strange. Okay, because I said, suddenly this guy has changed. Like, used to be this intimidating guy, and boom, it's like, it was a complete 180. It was just very sudden. And so I really found the whole thing, and as it happened, I should have actually asked my dad why he did this. And I think I know the answer. I think the answer is that, probably knowing him, I would say that he probably always wanted the relationship to be one of friends. But he found that some of our behaviors when we were really small did not live up to that standard. So he thought at some point parenting was needed, and at another point parenting was not needed. So the thing that dawned on me was that my father had given us, from my point of view, an enormous amount of trust. I felt this was a very high amount of trust he had placed on us, because he never ever questioned or asked, even once. It was never questioned, so much money is gone, or what happened here, what happened there, whatever. Never questioned it. And from my point of view, one of the things that was absolutely clear is that I don't believe even 5 rupees was wasted. I went to a movie with my girlfriend, but there was good value for that. It was not wasted on some drugs or some stupid things. It was actually a fun experience for everyone. So I never felt like I took the money and spent a large amount buying some expensive thing or something like that. I never did that. So when my daughters were, I think, 12 and 13, I decided to do the same thing with them. So I said, okay, he did this at 16. I want to try it a little earlier, see what happens. So when they were 12 and 13, I sat them down, okay? And I didn't tell them, you go to my wallet, whatever else. I said, I gave them both credit cards. I gave them American Express credit cards, which have no spending limit, unlimited spending. And I said, look, anytime you need anything, you want to buy some dress, or you want to go somewhere with your friends, or go to a restaurant, whatever else you want to do, you spend as you want. You don't need to ask me or anything. And all their friends, so this is the way it is normally in the US, all their friends were on tight allowances. So the parents would tell them, okay, look, if you do the dishes and if you clean your room and this and that, I'll give you $25 every week. If you do all these things, I'll give you. So it was conditional. If you do X, I'll give you Y. In our case, there were no conditions. It was just carte blanche given to them. And basically that credit card, they could have spent $50,000. It had no limit. They could have spent a huge amount. And what ended up happening is, of course, one of the negatives which I didn't want but was there in this system was, unlike my father, I could see the credit card bill, right? Now my father could not see anything because he just, cash went and there's no record. But I wasn't really trying to keep track of them, but I didn't want to have cash because cash is more cumbersome. The credit card is easier. But just the side effect was that I could see what's going on, right? Every month I can see how much they spend. And every month what I felt is that they spend too little. So I used to tell them, listen, don't be shy, this and that. And when I talked to them, they actually found something very strange. They would go to some clothing store with their friends, and the friends would look at some dress and say, oh, I really wish I could buy that dress. So they would say, if you want to buy it, go buy it. Oh no, my allowance is not enough, this, that, all this stuff. So they found it really strange because they felt if they really wanted a dress, they would just click the card and buy it and be done. And so they found it strange that all their friends were on these tight leashes and all. And the friends' parents were well off. They were not poor or anything. They had all these tight leashes and all that. So the difference was that in our case, again, learning from my father, I gave them complete trust, right? At 12 or 13, there was complete trust given to them. And I actually never saw any charges ever that gave me any reason to question. And they found it strange when their friends would go here and there. They'll say, if you want to buy this, go tell your dad or mom and buy it. What's the problem here? And they said, no, I can't do that, this and that. I felt that what I copied from my dad actually helped my relationship with my daughters because it built a lot of trust, both ways. They knew I could trust them and I knew that they could trust me. And so it worked out really well. So I think going back to your question, the parents with the lies, I think it's really hard. So I think you should try as far as possible to say the truth, but it may not be 100% possible. Some things may be too hard. So then what you can do is you can lie and 5 years later tell them, hey, by the way, I lied to you about that, just to clear your conscience. And then what you're going to find is they'll say, oh, this was so irrelevant. You could have said the truth to me right then. Any other questions? Yeah.
Hello, sir. Good morning. I am Bindu Shreyas from JNV Mysuru, Karnataka. And my question to you is that, sir, how can one stay determined without getting distracted towards their home while studying? How can one eradicate homesickness? And also, please help us with the ways of maintaining consistency in our performance. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to make this the last question. So, there's a book, when you guys maybe get to third year medical or something, you can read that book. It's called No Two Alike. The name of the book is No Two Alike. I think the name of the author is Judith Harris. And basically, the premise of the book is that humans are very heavily influenced, especially when we are kids. We're very heavily influenced by really only two things. Number one is our genes, and number two is our peers. So parents actually have very little influence on us. Whatever influence they had, they just gave through their genes. After that, their influence has ended. In all of your cases, what has happened is that you have spent large amounts of time away from your parents. And actually, that's a very healthy thing. So even though it may seem to you that you're in a boarding school and your parents are not with you and you would have more love and different things, but actually you will learn the most from your peers. And so in your case, because of being in a boarding situation from the time you were like 12 years old, the peers have driven a lot of the learning. And I think what's going to happen with you is, even after you finish 12th standard, when you go to college, you'll again be in boarding. You'll again be in med school and all that. So boarding will continue from like the age of 12 to maybe 23 or 24. It's a long period of time. And so one thing to keep in mind, that you may not realize this, but if all your peers were taken away from you and only your parents were put with you, you would hate that. Okay? That would be so useless. In 3 days, you'd be done with them. Okay? You'd say, that's what happened in the pandemic. Like, pandemic, what happened? You got overdose of parents. Okay? What happened in the US, what I noticed, kids will always make excuses. Oh, my stomach is hurting. I don't want to go to school, this and that. After the pandemic, they all want to go to school. Nobody wants to stay home. Okay? They saw what home is like. Home is useless. Okay? Do you agree? Home is useless? Yeah. Home is useless. You have no friends. Only parents. So anyway, so in general, I would just say that parents are overrated. Okay? Just don't tell them that, but I'm telling you that they're overrated. And the other thing I would just say, the Buddha said, the key to happiness is the elimination of desire. Okay? So the more desires you have, the less happy you're going to be. You just said that I miss my parents. That's a desire. Okay? So it is hard to eliminate desires. But the more desires that you eliminate, the better off you're going to be. So it is natural for us as humans to have a lot of cravings and to have a lot of desires and have a lot of things that we want. The more you can cut that list, the happier you're going to be. You look at someone like Buddha, like sitting under a tree, nothing going on, really happy. Okay? And so if you really want to get into a nirvana state, then you really don't want to have, and it's a little harsh, but deep desire for another person is healthy in many ways, but it's a negative as well. So in general, I would just advise you that whether it's people or things or activities, less is more. You can be very happy with very little. And so that can work out well. But I enjoyed the session with all of you. It was great to see everyone. Now you don't have too much time left. When are the NEET exams? 7th May. Pardon? 7th May. One person. 7th May? So it's only 4 months. Are you ready? Yes, sir. All right. And am I going to get a veterinarian or two? someone needs to take care of the animals. You might enjoy that a lot. Hanging out with dogs and cats all day, that'll be a lot of fun. So, all right, well, I wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir.
Are we going for pictures? Okay, so let's go. All right, thank you.